I have been coming to this yoga studio twice a week for 6 weeks, and I have not learned a single thing about proper alignment or breathing techniques. What I have learned is that my yoga instructor has a small tattoo of a lotus flower on her left shoulder blade, that she bites her lower lip slightly when demonstrating difficult poses, and that watching her move through a vinyasa flow makes my brain completely forget how to function. And today, she caught me staring. Again. Her name is Kai, and she looked directly at me from across the room while I was supposed to be in downward dog, but was instead watching the way her muscles moved under her sports bra as she adjusted another student's pose. Our eyes met. She smiled, slow and knowing, and mouthed the words, "See something you like?" I nearly face-planted onto my yoga mat. Before we go further, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, and please hit that subscribe button. This story gets significantly more complicated and significantly better, and you will want to stick around for how it ends. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this situation. My name is Nora Mitchell. I am 30 years old, and up until 3 months ago, my life was a perfectly organized disaster of billable hours, court dates, and a marriage that looked great on paper but felt hollow in practice. I am a corporate attorney at a mid-sized firm in Denver, the kind of lawyer who bills 80 hours a week and considers sleep a luxury. My life was work, more work, and occasionally pretending to have a personal life for the benefit of colleagues and clients. Then my body staged a revolt. Insomnia so severe I was functioning on 2 hours of sleep a night. Anxiety attacks in the courthouse bathroom. Tension headaches that felt like my skull was being squeezed in a vice. My doctor took one look at me during my annual physical and said, "Nora, you are 30 years old, and your cortisol levels suggest you are training for a triathlon while simultaneously defusing bombs. You need to do something about your stress before your body makes the decision for you." She recommended yoga. I laughed. Yoga seemed like something for people who had time to be in touch with their feelings and could afford to not be productive for an entire hour. But she was insistent. And honestly, I was desperate. So I Googled yoga studios near my apartment, found one called Lotus Flow that had good reviews and evening classes, and signed up for their beginner sessions. That was 6 weeks ago. The first class, I showed up in ancient college gym shorts and an oversized t-shirt, feeling completely out of place among the people in matching athletic wear with their own personalized yoga mats. I spread my rental mat in the back corner, hoping to be invisible. Then Kai walked in, and invisible became the last thing I wanted to be. She was probably 28 or 29, with dark hair pulled into a high ponytail, warm brown skin, and the kind of natural grace that suggested years of movement training. She wore simple black leggings and a fitted tank top that showed off toned arms decorated with delicate tattoos, a constellation on her right forearm, a mandala on her left ribs that I could see when she raised her arms. But it was the way she moved that stopped my breath. Fluid and confident and completely present in her body in a way I had never been in mine. "Welcome, everyone," she said, her voice warm and surprisingly grounded. "I am Kai, and this is a judgment-free space. Yoga is not about being perfect or flexible or looking a certain way. It is about showing up for yourself and learning to listen to what your body needs. So let's take a breath together and set an intention for our practice." I should have been setting an intention related to stress relief or sleep or not having a panic attack at work. Instead, my brain just kept repeating, "Wow, she is really beautiful," which was an inconvenient thought for multiple reasons. First, I was there to fix my stress problem, not develop a crush on my yoga instructor. Second, I was technically still married, though my husband David and I had agreed to divorce about 2 months prior, when we both finally admitted what we had been avoiding for 3 years. We were good friends. We genuinely liked each other. We had absolutely no romantic or sexual chemistry, and we had both been performing heterosexuality for the benefit of our families and careers while quietly dying inside. David came out to me first, stumbling through a confession that he thought he might be gay while we were having wine on our couch after another silent dinner. I cried with relief and told him I thought I might be not straight either, though I had never let myself explore what that meant. We stayed up all night talking about the years we had wasted trying to fit into expectations that did not fit us, and we agreed to divorce as amicably as possible and actually figure out who we were. He moved out the next week. We were still navigating the paperwork, but emotionally, we were both free, which meant that theoretically, I was available to notice attractive women. Practically, I had no idea what to do with that information. I had spent my entire adult life in a heteronormative bubble, and I felt like a teenager with a crush, except I was a 30-year-old lawyer who should have had better emotional regulation skills. That first class, I was terrible at yoga. My hamstrings were so tight I could barely touch my knees in a forward fold. My balance was non-existent. I fell out of tree pose 3 times. But Kai was patient and encouraging, walking around the room offering gentle adjustments and modifications. When she came to help me with my warrior pose, placing her hands lightly on my hips to adjust my alignment, I forgot how to breathe entirely. She smelled like sandalwood and something citrusy, and her touch was professional but warm, and I had to actively concentrate on not doing something embarrassing like sighing out loud. "That is better," she said softly. "Feel how your hips are more open now?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. She moved on to the next student, and I spent the rest of class trying to remember what normal breathing sounded like. I went back 2 days later, and 2 days after that, and again, telling myself it was for my health, for my stress levels, for my doctor's recommendations, which was partly true. Yoga was helping. I was sleeping slightly better. My anxiety was marginally more manageable. But mostly, I went back because of Kai. Over the weeks, I learned things about her from her casual comments during class. She had been a professional dancer until a knee injury ended her career at 25. She found yoga during her recovery and fell in love with teaching. She had a degree in kinesiology and had trained in multiple yoga styles. She loved poetry and terrible puns and made playlists for each class that somehow perfectly matched the energy of the practice. And I learned that I was not subtle about my attraction. I tried to be. I really did. But apparently, I stared. A lot. I would lose track of my own pose because I was watching her demonstrate. I would forget to breathe during vinyasa because she was moving across the front of the room like water. Other students probably noticed, but I was too focused on Kai to care. What I did not realize until week 6 was that Kai had noticed too, and that she had been noticing me right back. It happened during a Tuesday evening class. We were moving through a sequence, and Kai was walking around offering adjustments. I was attempting a particularly challenging balance pose, Warrior 3, which required extending one leg back while reaching forward with my arms, creating a straight line parallel to the ground. I was wobbly and unstable, all my weight on one shaking leg. Then I felt Kai's hands on my hips, steadying me, and my entire body went rigid. "Relax," she said quietly, close enough that I could feel her breath against my ear. "You are holding too much tension. Let me support you." Her hands were firm and warm, and she gently adjusted my alignment, tilting my hips slightly, extending my back leg further. "I am going to help you find your balance. Trust me." I tried to relax, I really did, but having her hands on me was doing the opposite of relaxing. My heart was racing. My breathing was definitely not the steady Ujjayi breath she had taught us, and I was acutely aware of how close she was standing. Then she leaned in just slightly and whispered, "And I swear I am not making this up. Relax. I don't bite. Unless you ask nicely." My balance completely failed. I stumbled forward, catching myself before I actually fell, but barely. Kai steadied me with a hand on my lower back, and when I turned to look at her, she was smiling. That same slow, knowing smile from earlier. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice perfectly professional, but her eyes absolutely twinkling with amusement. "Fine," I managed, my face burning. "Just lost my balance." She held my gaze for one beat too long. Happens to everyone. Just breathe through it. Then she moved on to the next student, leaving me standing there trying to process what had just happened. The rest of class was torture. I could not focus on anything except the feeling of her hands on my body and the way she had whispered in my ear and the growing certainty that she knew exactly what she was doing to me. When we finally moved into Savasana, the final resting pose, I lay on my mat with my eyes closed and tried to calm my racing thoughts. This was my yoga instructor. This was inappropriate. This was a professional relationship. This was me projecting my own attraction and reading into innocent comments. Except that whisper had not felt innocent. After class, I rolled up my mat as quickly as possible, planning to escape before I did something mortifying like confess my feelings or spontaneously combust. but as I was heading toward the door, I heard Kai's voice behind me. "Nora, can I talk to you for a second?" I turned slowly. She was standing by the front of the room, her mat already rolled and set aside, looking relaxed and confident and unfairly attractive. "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual. She walked closer, stopping about 3 feet away. "So, I have noticed something over the past few weeks." I felt my stomach drop. Oh God, this was it. She was going to tell me I made her uncomfortable with my staring and I needed to find a different yoga class or possibly leave the state entirely. "What did you notice?" I asked, my voice coming out higher than intended. "You have been staring at me. A lot." Her tone was not accusatory, just matter of fact, with an edge of amusement. I opened my mouth to deny it, to apologize, to explain it away. She held up a hand. "Let me finish. You have been staring at me for 6 weeks. During poses, during demonstrations, basically any time you think I am not looking. Which brings me to my question." She tilted her head slightly, that small smile playing at her lips again. "See something you like?" I genuinely could not form words. My brain had completely shut down. I stood there opening and closing my mouth like a fish, my face probably the color of a tomato, trying to figure out if this was a call-out or an invitation. I did not intend to. That is not. I trailed off, helpless. Kai's smile widened. "It is okay, Nora. Really. Because here is the thing. I have been staring back. I just waited to see if you would give me any indication that it was okay to acknowledge it. And based on your reaction when I helped you with your balance earlier, I am guessing you are not entirely opposed to the attention." I stared at her. You knew this whole time." She shrugged, completely unbothered. "I am a yoga instructor. Part of my job is reading body language and energy. You think I did not notice that you forget to breathe every time I adjust your alignment? Or that you nearly fell over when I got too close today? Nora, you are not subtle. I wanted to die. I also wanted to kiss her, which was a confusing combination of impulses. I did not know what to say. I did not know if this was appropriate. I did not know what the protocol was for your yoga instructor telling you she had been mutually crushing on you for weeks while you thought you were suffering alone. "So I am not imagining this," I said weakly. "Definitely not imagining it," she said. "But I also want to be clear about something. I do not make a habit of pursuing students. It is unprofessional and creates complicated dynamics. But you are not just a student to me. You are someone I find interesting and attractive, and I would very much like to get to know outside of this studio, if you are interested." My heart was doing something complicated in my chest. I am interested. Very interested. But I have no idea what I am doing. I just got separated from my husband 2 months ago, and I am still figuring out the whole being attracted to women thing, and I am a complete disaster, and... She interrupted gently. "Nora, breathe. You don't have to have everything figured out. We can take this slow. Get coffee. Talk like normal people instead of instructor and student. See if the chemistry we feel in here translates outside of yoga class. No pressure, no expectations. What do you think?" "I think I would really like that," I said, finally finding my voice. She pulled out her phone. "Give me your number. Let's find a time that works this week." I gave her my number, my hands still shaking slightly. She texted me immediately so I would have her contact info. "There," she said. "Now go home, get some rest, and stop overthinking whatever you are already overthinking. I can see it on your face." I laughed, surprising myself. "How do you know I am overthinking?" "Because you are a lawyer and you have been tense since the moment you walked into this studio 6 weeks ago. Trust me, I noticed these things." She reached out and squeezed my arm gently. "See you Thursday for class. And text me tomorrow about coffee, okay?" "Okay," I agreed, still feeling like I was in some kind of surreal dream. I left the studio and drove home in a daze. Once I was safely in my apartment, I sat on my couch and just stared at the wall for approximately 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. My yoga instructor had been mutually attracted to me this whole time. She wanted to get coffee. She had whispered in my ear during class because she knew I was attracted to her. This was actually happening. I texted my ex-husband David, who I had stayed close with through the divorce process. "You are not going to believe what just happened. His response was immediate. Did you finally talk to the hot yoga instructor you have been pining over? I blinked at my phone. How did you know about that? Nora, you mentioned her approximately 15 times in the past month. I know you. When you fixate on something, you cannot shut up about it. So what happened? I gave him a summary of the evening. He sent back a string of excited emojis followed by, "This is amazing. You deserve this. Go have coffee with the hot bendy woman and stop being terrified of being happy." He was right. I was terrified. Not of Kai specifically, but of the entire situation. I had spent 3 years in a marriage where I performed a version of myself that was not real. Now I was being offered a chance to explore who I actually was, and it was exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. The next day, I texted Kai. "Hi, this is Nora. Are you free for coffee Saturday morning?" Her response came within minutes. "Perfect. There is a great cafe near the studio. Meet you at 10? "It's a date," I typed, then immediately panicked about using the word date. Was it a date? Was I being presumptuous? Before I could spiral further, she sent back a smiley face and, yes, it is. Saturday morning, I changed outfits approximately 7 times before forcing myself to just pick something and stick with it. I arrived at the cafe at 9:55 and found Kai already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She waved when she saw me, and my stomach did a nervous flip. She was wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater instead of her usual yoga clothes, her hair down and wavy instead of pulled back, and she looked even more beautiful than usual. "I got you a latte," she said as I sat down. "I remembered you mentioned liking them after class once." "That might be the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me," I said, only half joking. She laughed. "Your bar is way too low." We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her dance career, about the injury that ended it, and the dark period afterward when she thought she had lost her identity, about finding yoga and realizing teaching gave her the same joy performing had, about her family, her younger brother who was in culinary school, her parents who ran a bookstore in Boulder. I told her about my job, about the pressure and stress and constant feeling of being overwhelmed, about my marriage to David and our mutual realization that we were both queer and had been using each other as cover, about feeling like I was starting life over at 30 and having no idea what I was doing. "You are doing just fine," she said gently. "You left a situation that was not working. You are figuring out who you are. You started doing yoga, even though it scared you. You are here having coffee with me, even though I know you are probably internally freaking out." That takes courage, Nora. I felt tears prick my eyes unexpectedly. I am terrified. She reached across the table and took my hand. "I know. But you do not have to be terrified alone." We saw each other 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk through the botanical gardens. The walk turned into her inviting me to her apartment to watch a movie, which we mostly talked through because neither of us could focus on the screen. And through it all, there was this simmering tension, this awareness of attraction that neither of us acted on. She would touch my arm while laughing at something I said, and I would feel electricity. I would lean closer during conversation, and she would hold my gaze just a beat too long. We were circling each other, building anticipation, and it was driving me slowly insane. Finally, after our 4th date, I made a decision. I texted Kai. "Do you offer private yoga sessions?" Her response, "Yes. Why?" "I want to book one. With you." There was a longer pause this time. Then, "Are you sure that is a good idea? We have been doing really well keeping the yoga instructor thing separate from the dating thing." "I know, but I want a session. Just me and you. Please." Another pause. "Okay." Thursday evening, 7 p.m. The studio will be empty. Come prepared to actually do yoga, though. I am going to make you work. I arrived Thursday at 6:55, my heart pounding. The studio was quiet and dimly lit, just a few lamps on instead of the usual bright overhead lights. Kai was already there, setting up mats in the center of the room. She looked up when I entered, and something shifted in the energy between us immediately. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I replied, setting down my bag. "I am glad you are here," she said. "But I want to be clear. If we do this, if we practice together one-on-one, I need to actually teach you, not just flirt with you for an hour. Can you handle that? I can try, I said. She smiled. Then let's begin. The first 30 minutes were genuinely yoga. She guided me through poses, offered corrections and adjustments, pushed me to hold difficult positions longer than I wanted. And I tried to focus. I really did. But having her undivided attention, feeling her hands correcting my alignment, hearing her voice giving me instructions, it was overwhelming in the best possible way. Then we moved into a hip-opening sequence, and everything changed. I was lying on my back, one knee bent and crossed over my body in a spinal twist, and Kai knelt beside me to deepen the stretch. Her hand pressed gently on my shoulder to keep it grounded, while her other hand guided my knee further toward the floor. The position opened my entire side body, vulnerable and exposed, and she was so close I could feel the heat of her body. "Breathe into it," she said quietly. "Let go of the tension." Her hand moved from my shoulder to my upper arm, a light stabilizing touch. I tried to breathe, but my breath was shaky, uneven. She noticed immediately. "Nora." I opened my eyes and found her looking at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not the instructor face, not the casual date face. Something intense and unguarded. "What is wrong?" she asked. "Nothing is wrong," I whispered. "This is just really hard." "The yoga? Or being this close to me?" "Both," I admitted. She was quiet for a moment, her hand still resting on my arm. Then she said very softly, "Okay, we need to address this. I cannot teach you properly when every time I touch you, you look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you want me to do more than adjust your posture." The words hung in the air between us. My heart was racing so fast I thought she might be able to hear it. "What if I do?" I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "Want you to do more than adjust my posture? What if I have been thinking about it since that first class? What if I booked this private session specifically hoping something like this would happen?" She did not move, but I saw her throat work as she swallowed. Then, very carefully, she said, "Then this class ended about 5 minutes ago. And now we are just two people who are very attracted to each other. Is that what you want?" "Yes," I said, sitting up to face her properly. "I want that. I want you." Kai reached out and cupped my face with one hand, her thumb brushing my cheekbone. "I have wanted to kiss you since you stumbled through your first sun salutation looking completely lost and determined at the same time. Are you sure about this, Nora? Because once we cross this line, we cannot uncross it." "I am sure," I said. She leaned in and kissed me. Soft and sweet at first. Tentative, giving me space to pull away. I did not pull away. I leaned into her, my hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, and she made a small sound against my mouth that sent heat coursing through my entire body. We ended up tangled together on the yoga mat, her body partially covering mine, kissing like we had been holding back for years instead of weeks. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Okay," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "That was worth the wait." "Definitely worth the wait," I agreed. She smiled and brushed a strand of hair from my face. "So what happens now? Now we acknowledge that I probably cannot keep taking your classes at the studio without it being weird," I said, "because I will not be able to focus on anything except this." She considered. "You could switch to one of the other instructors. Melissa teaches the same evening classes and she is excellent. Would that work?" "Yeah," I said. "That would work." She kissed me again, softer this time. "And then maybe we can focus on the non-yoga parts of getting to know each other, like actual dates where I do not have professional boundaries to maintain." "I would really like that," I said. Over the next month, we did exactly that. I switched to Melissa's classes, which were great but definitely did not have the same appeal now that I was dating Kai instead of pining after her. Kai and I went on actual dates without the instructor-student dynamic. We cooked dinner together at her apartment. We went hiking in the mountains. We had long conversations about our pasts and our hopes for the future. And slowly, carefully, I learned what it felt like to be in a relationship where I was actually myself instead of performing a role. It was not always easy. I still had moments of panic, wondering if I was doing it right or if I was going to mess everything up. But Kai was patient and understanding, and she never made me feel like I had to have everything figured out immediately. "You are not a work in progress that needs to be fixed," she told me one night when I was spiraling about not being experienced enough. "You are exactly who you are supposed to be right now, and I like who you are. That is enough." 3 months after that first coffee date, I invited Kai to meet David. I was nervous about it, worried it would be weird, but David was genuinely happy for me and Kai was gracious and warm. They ended up talking about literature for an hour while I watched, relieved and grateful that the people I cared about could get along. Afterward, David pulled me aside. "She is good for you," he said. "I have never seen you this relaxed. You seem happy." "I am happy," I said, realizing it was true. Now, 6 months into our relationship, Kai is sitting across from me at her apartment, both of us drinking tea after an early morning hike. And she is looking at me with that expression I have come to know well. The one that means she is about to say something important. "I have been thinking," she says. "About what?" "About how we met. About how you walked into that yoga class looking completely overwhelmed and like you might bolt at any second." I laughed. "I was absolutely ready to bolt, but you did not," she said. "You stayed. You kept showing up. You let yourself be vulnerable even when it scared you. And now look where we are." I reached across the table and took her hand. Best decision I ever made. Staring at my yoga instructor until she called me out on it, she grinned. "See something you like?" I smiled back. "Yeah, I really do."